Hello everyone, I welcome you back to my playlist where we would be solving the topical past papers for your IGCSE Biology 0610. And today we begin with discussing the topicals for chapter number 1, which is entitled as Characteristics and Classification of the Organism. If I take you to this question number one, they say is that we have given you this figure 1.1. So this is figure 1.1 with us. And here they have shown you total of seven marsupial mammals. And if I were to show you, so these marsupial animals, this is A, we have got B, we have C. Then we have this D with us. Then here marsupial E comes, and then we have got this F coming, and then at the end they have given you this G marsupial animal. If we were to go on to the question, so for the first part, they say is that you have to state one visible feature that could be used to identify the marsupial as a mammal. So if I were to recall some of the points from the mammals, so you know that they have the external ears in them, their body would be covered with fur or with hairs, they have got the mammary glands to feed their young ones, and the female individuals, they have the placenta on the inside of their body to be developing their offsprings or the young ones. So if we just look on toward the diagram of all of these marsupials, so the characteristic that we see visible in all of them would be their external ears or the external pinnas. So that is why the answer would be that they have one common visible feature among them, and that is the external ear. Now, if we come toward the second part, now this is actually a dichotomous key that we have to be following all of the instructions which are given in the table, and by that we would be identifying each and every individual marsupial animal which they have given us at the top. So they say is that you have to use the key, and by that you are required to be identifying each species. And then they say is that you are required to be writing the letter of each of the species that is given from A to G, and then we have to do it into their correct box beside the key. So here they have given you the box at the end where we have to identify each of the marsupial species, and then we have to be writing the letter for them. And the examiner is being kind with us, and they have done one for you. And if you just look on toward the 6p part, so they say that if there are no white band across the back and the chest, so that animal is G, and the genus is Deciurus maculatus. So this means that we there and then have to put a cross here in order to avoid the confusion. And rest of the letters that we are given as A, B, C, D, E, and F, so we have to be using them for the identification of the animals. Now here for the A, first A part is that the tail is visible, and the A, B says no tail is visible. So what you need to be doing is that all of the animals that are given above, if their tail is visible, so you have to write their letters here for your convenience. And if no tail is visible, you there and then have to be writing the letter here, and then you have to go accordingly to the point 2 and the 3 which they have given you here and here. So if I take you to the diagram, so if we see the marsupials that have got their tail visible, so this is A with me, this is E with me, this is D with me, and this is F with me. And the marsupials that have got their tail not visible, so this is C with me, and that would be B with me. So I have written it there and then that the ones with the tail available, that is A, E, D, and F, and with no tail being visible, so this is B and C. Now I have to stick with these letters, and then I have to go to the point 2, and I would not stop until or unless I have filled all the letters which are given at the end. So if I just come on to word point number 2, so here they say is that you are required to be identifying the animals whose back feet are at least twice as long as the front feet. And the 2b part says that you have to be identifying those marsupials whose back feet and the front feet, they are of the similar length. So you see that I have to basically split these letters which I have written at the top in their specific columns, and then I have to follow these points to be cracking them. So if we just come onto the diagram, and if you just look on toward this A marsupial, so his back feet are twice as long as its front feet that we have got. So this would be A with us. And if I just take you toward this T marsupial which is given over here, so again you could see that the length of his back feet, it is twice as long as the front feet that we have got with us. And among the rest that we have got this E and F, so you see is that the length of their front feet and the back feet, that is same with me. So this is how the things are becoming easier for us. So you see I have written among this is that this is A and D, and those whose front and the back feet they are of an equal length, so this is E and F. So now you see after I have written their letters here, I would be going to the fourth point and then I would write E and D accordingly. So here I have jumped to this part 4, and here I have written it clearly among A and D that we have to be sorting A and D according to the statements given. And here they say is that tail is at least twice as long as the body, and the tail is less than twice as long the body, and the letter that we have been written here is A and D. So let me just look on toward A and D. So you see that for the A animal, you see that its tail length is twice as long as the body length. And if we just look on toward the D that we have got, so the tail length is enormous, but this is not twice as much as the body size. So that is why for the fourth A part, I would be writing A out of A and D. And for the 4B part, we would be writing D over here. So this is how we are actually solving this dichotomous key with us. So you see that we are done with A, E, D, and F, and now we are left with A, B part where no tail was visible. And here we have highlighted that this would be B and C, and we are required to be going to the 3. So if I just come to word 3 from here to here, so they say is that among the B and C, what has got larger ears relative to the size of the head? And then they say is that small ears relative to the size of the head. So you know we are required to be choosing between B and C that we have here. And then we are coming here. So you see as that among the B and C, so you see that the C has got enormous size of the ears and this B has got less size of the ears. So that is why for this point, the letter that we have identified, so this is a C with me. And for the second, where there are small ears comparative to the size of the head, so you see that this marsupial has got ears small comparative to the size of head. So that is why we are writing B letter here. So this is how we are required to be cracking the dichotomous keys. Now, if I further move toward the B part of this question, so here they say is that the sexual reproduction occurs in all mammals, and you know that whenever the reproduction is sexual, so there is involvement of the two parent. As if I talk about myself, we are human beings, we are mammals, so we have the male parent, we have the female parent. The male parent would be making the sperm cell and the female parent would be making an egg cell, and when they both would fuse with one another, so as a result of that we would be making a zygote, and this fusion of this sperm cell and the egg cell is what we refer to this as fertilization, and that is happening in between the male gamete which is the sperm and the female gamete which is egg. So they say is that name the process that results in the formation of the haploid gamete. So you may have heard about two words in this context. One of the type of the cell division that happens in the asexual reproduction is mitosis, where a parent cell at the top, it would divide to be further making two daughter cells such that the number of the chromosome is same in them. If I were to talk about the meiosis, where at the top we have got the parent cell, and when this would be undergoing the meiosis process, so we would end up making total of four daughter cells, and such that the number of the chromosomes in these four daughter cells, it would be reduced to half or they would become haploid gametes. So that is why the answer that we are required to be writing here is meiosis. Now further he asks is that explain the importance of sexual reproduction in the mammals. Now we are aware of this fact that whenever the mammals they are reproducing sexually, so they are making new offsprings, and that making of the new offsprings, it would be required to be maintaining the population size. As we know that by this sexual reproduction, new offsprings are produced. The other scenario is that when we are making the gametes as a result of the meiosis process, so each of the gamete cell which is forming here, they would have different combination of the alleles, and that happens due to the crossing over phenomenon. So moving further, when the male individual would be releasing the sperm cells into the female reproductive tract, so all of the sperm cells they have got a different makeup or the combination of the genes. So which sperm among them would be fusing with the egg cell that is released from the ovaries of the mother? This is an entirely random process. So that random fertilization would bring about the variations in the offsprings, and as a result of that, they would be developing some new characteristics, and that would allow them to be adapting to the changing environment. So for the 3 marks, what you have to be focusing is that this sexual reproduction is maintaining the population size as the offsprings are produced. When the random fusion of the gametes happen between the sperm cell and the egg cells, so the offsprings they would have variations in them, and these variations would allow them to be developing some characteristics, and by that they would adapt to the changing environment. Now, if we come on to word question number two, that actually came in May, June 2016, and you know the course code is 0610. They say is that figure 2.1, which they show you at the bottom, is this is an electron micrograph of what? The bacteria, and the genus of the bacteria is Vibrio, and the species is Chloride with us. Now, if you were to clearly see that these bacteria, they have got these finger-like projection kind of a thing, or there is an elongation getting out of these bacterial cells, and we refer to them as the flagellum, we say. Now here they ask us for the A first part, that the bacteria they are the prokaryotes, and by the prokaryotes simply we mean the bacteria. They ask for 2 marks as that state two distinguishing features of all the prokaryotes. Now what you need to be keeping it in your mind is that the bacteria they have the cell wall, then they have got this cell membrane, then they would have their circular DNA that is not enclosed by the nucleus. These bacteria they have got small ribosomes in them, and some of the bacteria, not all the bacteria have plasmids in them. So this would mean that the features that apply to all the prokaryotes of the bacteria are the presence of the cell wall, the presence of the cell membrane, no nucleus bound circular DNA, and these small ribosomes. So any of the points you could write it over here. So as I have written that all of the prokaryotes they would have no true nucleus or no nuclear membrane would be present in them, but rather it would be absent. And any of the bacteria does not have any of the membrane-bound organelles. Like if we talk about the eukaryotes, their mitochondria and the chloroplasts, they are membrane-bound or double membrane organelles, but these bacteria have not got them. Among the other alternative points, if you forget any of these two, so you would say that the presence of 70s ribosomes and the presence of the plasmids could be the alternative point that you could write in place of these two. For 1 mark, they ask is that the bacteria which they have shown you in figure 2.1, they have the flagellum. As I have highlighted it earlier, that this was their flagellum. And you see that this flagellum, it would provide the bacteria an ability to be moving or to be swimming. So since they have asked you to be suggesting the function of the flagellum in bacteria, so the answer is this with us. Now moving on toward question number three, this came in year May June, and the variant was 4.3, and this was year 2017 with us. And they say that this figure 4.1 is a photograph of yellow-shouldered Amazon, and the genus is Amazona, and its species is Barbadensis, and this is a species of the parrot which is found along coast of Caribbean, and that is Venezuelan with us. Now, if you were to look on to this parrot, so we clearly see its beak. and then we see the feathers in it, and then you see that it has got the claws in it. And these are the characteristic features of the birds with us. Now, here they say is for 2 marks that state the vertebrate group that includes this parrot, and you are required to be giving two features that are used to classify these animals into the group. So, in your classes, the teachers may have told you that among the vertebrates, we have got mammals, we have got birds, we have got reptiles, we have got amphibians, and we have got fish. So, the vertebrate group is the bird with us. And the feature that we could see in the diagram is that their body is covered with the feathers. Either you could write that they have a beak, but if you forget about it, so you could say that these birds they have no teeth or they have got scaly legs. So these are the alternative points that you could write in place of these two. Moving onward, for 3 marks, they have said that the species of this parrot, this is subdivided and they are making several populations. And these several populations, they are either living on the mainland or they are residing in the islands of Margarita and Bonaire areas. Now, what the scientists they believe is that these yellow-shouldered Amazons, the parrots which they have shown us above, so they say that they rarely travel between these two places. So if I were to say that here we have got the mainland where isolated groups of these, you could say, parrots are living, and if I have got some island, and if these, you could say, species of the parrots, if they are not moving in between two areas. So this is what they are asking us that explain what biologists mean when they refer to the populations of the animals such as A. barbadensis. So you see that here we would have isolated group of the individual parrots or the animals and they would be of the same species. And don't you think that they are living in the same habitat and they are living at the same time? So this is what the biologists they mean by this statement which they have given above. So you would say that they are the isolated group of the individual animals. Here you would get 1 mark. They are of the same species and they live at the same habitat. Here you will get 2 marks and they are living at the same time. So here you would get 3 marks. Now moving on to word question number 4. This came in the year 2017 again in October, November, and the variant is 43 with us. They say the kingdom fungi, it contains great diversity of the organisms and it includes yeast. There are molds in it and there are mushrooms in it. Now we have got a total of 5 kingdoms. We have animals, we have plants, we have fungus, we have protoctists, and then we have the fifth kingdom of the bacteria that we also call them as the prokaryotes. They say like plants, the fungi, they also have the nuclei and the mitochondria in them. So we know it very well that the plants, they have the nucleus, they have the mitochondria. So same are there in the fungi with us. They are asking for 2 marks as that state the function of mitochondria. Now you know the teachers may have told you that these mitochondria they are double membrane organelles and their role is doing aerobic respiration where they would be releasing the energy and that energy would be released by the process of aerobic respiration. So when you would say that these mitochondria they release energy, here you will get 1 mark, and by the process of aerobic respiration you will score 2 marks here. Further, they ask for the second part is that state two characteristics of the fungi that are used to distinguish them from the plants. Now, for the plants, what we know is that they have got their cell wall, they have got their cell membrane, then they have got this large permanent vacuole, then they have the nucleus, then they also have got a distinct organelle in them that allows them to photosynthesize, and this would be their chloroplasts. Now you know that the plants are autotrophs because they make their own food with the help of their chloroplasts. And the funguses, they don't have the chloroplasts in them, so you would say that the fungi are heterotrophs. And for the plants, you see that we have got this large permanent vacuole in them. So these fungi, they would have no central vacuole in them. Among the alternative valid point, the third point that you could keep it for your knowledge is that the plant cell wall is made up of the cellulose and the fungi cell wall is made up of the chitin. So as an alternative point, you could say that the funguses, they have a different composition of their cell wall. Moving onward to this question number 5 from May-June 2018 for the variant 4.2, and they say that this figure 5.1, it shows an adult fly and the name of the genus is Cryosomia and their species is Megacephala. So this is genus, this is species. If I could clearly take you to the parts of this insect, so here you see, here lies their head, and here comes their thorax, and then here comes their abdomen. So we know that the insects, they have their three body parts, like three segments of their body, and if we were to count their legs, so here you see that we have got total of six legs in them, or I could say that they have got three pair of legs and they have got one pair of antennas in them. So these are the characteristic feature of the insects that we have got. So they ask you for 3 marks as that you are required to tell three visible features which are shown in this figure 5.1 that could be used to distinguish adult insects from other arthropods. Among the other arthropods, we have myriapods, we have crustaceans, we have arachnids, but specifically for the insects, as I have said, they have three pair of legs, then their body has got total of three segments, and they have one pair of antennas in them. Now, if I were to move on toward the B part, and here they say is that the fly larvae, they are immature insects that are often used in the experiments on respiration. And we know that the respiration is a chemical process where the glucose combines with the oxygen gas to be making carbon dioxide and the water. So if I have to be understanding the respiration, so we are required to be carrying out experiments, and they are done on the immature insects of these fly larvae. They are asking you to be giving him the balanced chemical equation for the aerobic respiration. So here comes a formula for glucose, which is C6H12 and O6. We are required to be reacting them with 6 molecules or mole of oxygen gas, and we would end up 6 molecule of carbon dioxide gas, and we would be making 6 moles or molecules of the water. So this is some chemical equation that applies for the aerobic respiration, and the learners and the students, they are required to be remembering it. You see, the examiner has given 2 marks for this. Now moving onward to this question number 6 that we have got. So this appeared in the year May-June of 2018, and this variant is again 4.3 with us. And they say that this figure 2.1 shows an Arctic wolf. The genus is Canis and the species is Lupus. They say these wolves are one of the few mammals that are adapted to be living in extreme cold of the tundra, and where these tundras they are lying, they are there in the Canadian Arctic and they are there in the Alaska. Now they say that you are required to tell him two features that are visible in 2.1 that would be used to identify this Arctic wolves as the mammals. So you see, for the mammals, what we need to be keeping in our mind is that their body, it would be covered with the hairs. And here you see they have got their external ears. Now these are something that we see clearly in the figure. So for 2 marks, you would say that they have the external ears and their body is covered with the fur, we say. Now moving on to this part number 2, having 3 marks for it, they say Arctic wolves, they show many adaptative features to be surviving in the cold environment, and they want you to be explaining to them that what is the meaning of the term adaptative feature. Now, if I am to talk about us, you see that we have got our parents, and these parents, they would transfer the genetic material to the offsprings, and these offsprings would be using the genetic instructions or the information to be developing some beneficial features, some beneficial characteristics. And due to those beneficial characteristics, these offsprings, their chance of the survival in the external environment would increase. And once their survival is increasing in the external environment, so this is very evident that these offsprings, they would be able to be reaching the reproductive age. And when they would reach the reproductive age, so they would be in the position that they would transfer the genes of their beneficial characteristics into their future offspring. So this is all what we have to write in terms of adaptative features. So we would say that these adaptative features, they are the inherited features that we have got from the parents, and they would increase the survival of an organism in the environment. And since we have got our survival enhanced, so this would allow us to be reaching the reproductive age. And once we have reached the reproductive age, now we would be in the position to transfer the beneficial genes into our offsprings. So here you would get 3 marks for this. Now, if we come to this question number 7, this appeared in the year 2018, October, November, and the variant was 4.2. They say figure 6.1, it shows Galapagos iguana, and here is their genus, and here we have got their species. And if you could clearly see, like if I am to zoom it, so you see that they have got hard, scaly skin. And we know that these reptiles that we are talking about, so they lay the eggs, and those eggs they have the rubbery shell on it. So that is why for the 2 marks they are asking that we are required to tell our examiner about the 2 features that are used to classify animals such as these Galapagos iguana as reptiles. So you would say that they have got hard fixed scales. And then for the second mark, you would say that they would lay the eggs, and those eggs they would have a rubbery shell on them. Moving onward, they ask us that state 2 features that are present in the plant cell and that are not present in the cells of the reptiles. So reptiles actually are in the kingdom animals. So the animal cells they never have a chloroplast and they never have a cell wall. They also never have a large permanent vacuole. So you would say that the plants they have the chloroplast, these animals have not got it, or the reptiles they do not have it. Another point would be the cell wall. If you would like to be writing an alternative point, so you could say that these plants they have large permanent vacuole which would not be available in the cells of the reptiles. Now let us come to question number 8. And here you see this appeared in the year 2019, May, June, and the variant of your paper was 4.1. They say all commercial breeds of the sheep, they belong to the species, which is Ovis aries. Ovis is genus, Aries is again the species. Now they ask you is that you are required to be defining the term species, and the marks are 2. Now whenever we regard something as a species, as we human beings are the group of the organism that belong to Homo sapiens. So whatever ability is that we can reproduce, and then the offsprings that we are giving a birth to, they are also fertile. That means that when our offspring they would be growing to the age of puberty, so they can again give rise to the offsprings that would be fertile and can make the new offsprings. So for 2 marks, we would say that the species they are the group of the organisms that reproduce, and when they reproduce, so they produce the fertile offsprings. If I come on toward this part, so they say that this merino is a breed of sheep that is formed mainly for its wool. And further they say is that the wool is very thick and is made of lots of very thin hair. So the idea is that this sheep has got the wool, and in the wool we have got very thin hairs. So ultimately that has got the commercial importance, because if I would obtain the wool out of this sheep, I can use it to make various products and I can sell them in the market to be earning the profit. They say is that figure 1.1 that we have given you here, this shows a female merino sheep, and then she has got her newborn lamb. You see, this is feeding actually. Now this they ask you is for 2 marks that the presence of the hair is a feature that is only found in mammals. You are required to tell him 2 other features that would be distinguishing these mammals from the other vertebrates. None of the vertebrates or the organisms with the backbone, they have got these external ears in them, and none of them they have got the mammary glands in them. None of the other vertebrates they have got internally the presence of the placentas where these offsprings they are developed. So we would say that the mammary gland and the external ears they are the 2 features that would help us to distinguish these mammals from the other vertebrates. If I were to move further, so here you see the marks for this are 5, and the statement of the question goes as that these merino sheeps that we have got in the South Africa, they have high quality wool, and that wool has got very thin hairs in them. Now they are saying that this area, New Zealand, has got some breeders, those who are rearing these sheeps, so they are actually carrying out some selective breeding programs, and by that they intend to improve the wool of their sheep so that they were to match with the quality of South African wool. The idea is that since these merino sheep that are living in the South Africa, they have got very high quality wool. So the breeders that are living in the New Zealand, they would also would like to have their sheep that would have the same feature as of the merino sheep that we have got in the South African sheep. They say that you are required to describe the steps that the breeders would take to breed the sheep that have the wool with very thin hairs. So the idea is class that in that farm there could be many of the sheep. Not all the sheep would have the wool with the thin hair. Only few of the sheep, maybe three sheep or four sheep out of an entire herd, would have the wool with thin hairs. So I would separate these sheep from the remaining herd because they have got the wool with the thin hair. Now, what I am doing next is that I would cross these two or three or four sheep that I have separated. I would cross them with one another. When I would cross them with one another, so ultimately we would obtain offsprings out of them. And these offsprings, we would evaluate them that how many of the offsprings again have got the wool with the thin hair, and those offsprings they would be beneficial for me. I would allow those beneficial offsprings to be reaching the age of puberty, and then I would again cross them together. And we would repeat this process for several generations until we try to be obtaining the sheaves that would have the wool with the fine thin hair. So for 5 marks, how you were required to be writing this answer, that we would select the parent sheep that have got fine hair in their wool. Then we would isolate them from the rest of the herd so they don't mate randomly with less superior sheep, and then we would mate these isolated sheep together, and ultimately that mating together would be done either like with the help of the original animals or with the help of the artificial insemination. And when their offsprings are born, so we would measure the hair in the sheep's wool that are born, and out of those offspring that are born, we would only cross those offsprings when they have reached the age of puberty that has got the fine hairs, and we would repeat this step for several generations until the offsprings born they would have desired fine hair which the breeders they desire or they want to have in their sheeps. Now, if we go on to word the D part, here they ask us that what difference do we have in between the natural selection and the selective breeding. So you see that the nature, when it selects the organisms on the basis of their beneficial characteristics, so that would be the natural selection. But when the human beings they are selecting the animals or the plants, so that would be selective breeding. The natural selection, it takes a lot of time, even the centuries to be accomplished. But when we are doing the selective breeding, so the results can be obtained in a few years. When we talk about the natural selection, so this basically works in a way where we are required to be increasing the heterozygosity. Like the nature would want that the resulting offspring, they would have different combination of alleles like capital T and small t. But when the selective breeding is being done, so here the breeder they would want to have the allele combination that comes in the homozygous form. So for 3 marks, how you would answer it? That the natural selection is done by the nature, but the selective breeding is done by the human factors. The natural selection it increases the heterozygosity where different alleles they would appear in the combination. But when we are carrying the selective breeding, so the homozygosity would increase. Further, we would say for the 3rd mark that the natural selection it takes a lot of time to be accomplished, even the centuries. But whenever the artificial selection has to be carried on, then the desirable results they would be obtained in less time. Now, moving on toward this question number 9. that we have with us, this came in the year 2019 October November, and the variant was for 4.1 for your theory paper. They say all the living organisms, they are placed into the groups according to their features. And further they ask us or tell us that the myriapods are one of the main group of the arthropods. Class, among the arthropods we have got major four, like we have the myriapods. Moving the onward from the myriapods, the second one that we have with us, they are the insects. And then the third one that we have with us among the arthropods, they are arachnids. And the fourth one among the arthropods that we have got, so they are technically referred to as the crustaceans, we say. So for 2 marks, they say is that state two features of the myriapod that can be used to distinguish them from other arthropods. You see the myriapods like the millipedes and the centipedes, they have got many segments of their body, and in each of the segment we have got paired legs in them. So, and also the myriapods, they also have got one pair of antenna. So you can write any two out of it. So you would say that their body has got many segments and they have got many pair of legs in them. For this part, they say figure 1.1 shows that there are four main groups of arthropods. So you see, I have already mentioned their name. So here we have the arthropods. They say that here the group 1 is myriapods, and they have just written group 2, 3, and 4, and they did not write the name of these groups. And they asked for this B part for 2 marks, that you have to give him the name of two of the other group of the arthropods. So out of these four, you have to write any two. So I have written insects. You could write crustaceans. If you forget about crustaceans, so you could also write arachnids here, and here you would get 2 marks. And then here you see, they say is that the myriapods can be classified into four classes. There is class 1, there is this 2, there is this 3, and we have got this 4. As I have written above, they say that we have given you this figure 1.2, and this is a dichotomous key, and you have to use this dichotomous key to be distinguishing the four classes of myriapods. Okay? Like if I just come here, they have given you four myriapods, species J, K, L, M, N, and O, and we are required to be solving them up with the help of dichotomous key. Now here they say that there are myriapods, and the first point which they have given us, they say there are no eyes, and here they say the eyes are present. So simply we have to come on the diagram, and we need to see where there are no eyes and where the eyes are present. So you see that for the species J, there are no eyes. For the species K, you see we have got eyes. For the L, we have got no eyes. For M, we have got the eyes. For species N, again we have got the eyes. And for the species O, we again have got the eyes. So once you have seen them, so you are required to be writing the letters there and then. So no eyes were there in J and L. Like in the J, we have got no eyes, and in the L we have got no eyes. And further, when they say eyes are present, so they are there in the rest of the myriapods in K, M, N, and O. Now I have to go with these two letters. They say among J and L that we have highlighted now, they say you have to identify those myriapods that have got hairs on most of the body segments and no hairs on the body segments. So among J and L, you see we have got hairs, and on the L we have got no hairs. So you see, like for class 1 it would be J, and for the class 2 that have got no hairs on the body segment, so we would write L here. Moving onward, they say is that among these four myriapods, which is K, M, N, and O, now you have to go further. They say that among them you have to identify that what have got one leg on each side of each body segment. Like there has to be one leg on each side of each body segment. So the other thing is that there has to be presence of two legs on each side of each body segment. So you see we have done cracking J and L. So there and then I would put a cross on J, I would put a cross on L, and then we have to do it among K, M, N, and O. Now you see for the K, you see we have got two. legs on each side of their body. For the M, we have got just one leg on both sides of their body. For the species N, you see, again we have got two legs in each of the segment, but this is there only on one side. And for the O, you see, again we have got each of the segment, and in each of the segment we have got two legs. Like if I were to zoom, so you see this is one segment, and we have got two legs on each side. So now, since we have identified them, so you see that if there was one leg on each side of each body segment, so this is M with me, and for the other that have got two legs on each side of each body segment, so we have got K, N, and O. So simply they have given you a table here, and we would write the letters up here. And I have already written it up here as J, L, M, K, N, and O. So simply we would write them up in their specific column, and by that you would score total of 3 marks. If I were to come on this T part, they say figure 1.4 is a photograph of the myriapod. The genus is this, and the species is Virginiensis. For 2 marks, they ask you is that state the genus name and the kingdom name. So the genus name is this, which is written over here, which is Ephiloria. And now they are asking the kingdom. They are not asking the species. So since they are asking about the kingdom, so we know that these myriapods, they basically belong to the kingdom Animalia. So this is how you would get 2 marks for this. If I were to move on toward the second part, they say a Virginiensis, they release the poison cyanide when it is attacked by the predator. So if the predator is going to come and if this is going to attack this, so they would release a poison cyanide out of their body. They say cyanide stops enzymes in the mitochondria from functioning. So you see that the mitochondria actually carries out aerobic respiration to release energy out of it. And after the cyanide has blocked the enzymes in the mitochondria, so for sure the cells would die. And they are asking that you are required to suggest him that why the cells die if the mitochondria they are not functioning properly. So the answer is very simple that once the mitochondria die, no energy would be released by the respiration process. Okay, so let us move to this part now. And this came in the year 2019, and the variant was fourth, and the session was October, November. They say that there is ant mimic jumping spider, and here comes the name of its genus, and here is a species, and they have shown you the diagram. In this figure 1.1 that we have with us, they say the common name of this species describe its behavior, and further they are saying is that this is an arachnid, and this would trick its prey because it looks like the insect that it eats. So you see, to all appearances, this is looking like the insect on which this is feeding. But overall, this is the spider with us. And for 1 mark, they say is that suggests which trophic level in a food chain this organism could belong to. Now, as far as the trophic level has to be bothered about, so we know that at the base we have got the producers. And after the producers, there would be the coming up of the prey that would be eaten up by the spider. So that means that the spider which they have given us in the diagram, so its trophic level is here. So at the bottom we would have a producer, then the prey would be acting as a primary consumer, and the spider would be acting as a secondary consumer. Now they say state the genus of the spider shown. So they have given you the name of the genus themselves. So you just have to copy paste this word which they have given at the top. So this would go like this. And then they say is that some keys they use paired choices of features to identify the species such as ant, mimic, jumping spider. So you see that the type of the key that help us in identifying the individual species, so we call this as the dichotomous key. Here, if we just look on toward the B part, they say the spiders are classified as arachnids, and by the arachnids, what we say is that their body it would have total of two segments, and they say that arachnids are one of the main group of the arthropods, and they have given you the figure 1.2, and over there they are giving you the diagram of six arthropods, and they say four of them they are arachnids with us. So if we just look on toward the insects which are given, we have A, we have B, C, D, E, and F. And now they are asking us that you have to state two common features of all the arthropods which are visible in 1.2. So whenever the word arthropods come in biology, you would say that these arthropods, they have got segmented body and they have got paired legs in them. So here you would score total of 2 marks. Now further they are asking is that state two common feature of all arachnids that can be used to distinguish them from other arthropods. So for the arthropods, the idea is that their body has got two segments. One of that is the head, and the other part is cephalothorax with us. And they would have total of four pair of legs, and they would have no antennas in them. So among them, among all the points that I have told you, for scoring 2 marks, you would say that they have two body parts. Either you could say that they have four pair of legs, or you could write 8 legs, or you could say they have no antennas in them. Now here they want us for a total of 2 marks that we are required to be stating the letter of the four arachnids that are shown here. So if we just simply see here, this guy right here, this has got a hard exoskeleton. So this is not arachnid, but rather than this is crustacean with us. Now, if I were to talk about the guy E which they have given you here, so here they have got their head, and then they have got their thorax, and then here we have got their abdomen, and at the same time there are a total of 6 legs. So this is a feature for an insect. So this is the insect that we have got, and here we have got the crustacean, and for the rest we have got just their two body parts and two body parts, and again this again has got two body parts and two body parts. So B, C, D and E, they are arachnids. If you're not able to identify that whether their body has got two segments or the three segments, the other way around is that you should count four pair of legs. Like you have to see that whether 8 legs are there or no. Like if I were to give you an example in case of B, so here one leg, two, three, four, here is five, six, seven, and eight. And if I were to talk about C, so one, two, three, four, five, this is six, this is seven, and this is eight. The same would go for D. The same would go for E. So the latter would be B, C, D, and E. It doesn't matter in which order you write them up. Now, for 1 mark, they are asking that the features which are shown in figure 1.2 are morphological features. Morphological mean that how come their body structures they are designed. They say many traditional methods of classification they use morphology. Like if I were to put the living organisms into the groups, so the first thing that I am required to see in an organism is their morphology. They say state the name of other type of the features that can be also used in the classification. So among the other modes that we basically apply for doing the classification is that I would take the DNA out of these organisms and I would compare the sequence of the nucleotides or the nitrogenous bases which they have got in this biological molecule. If I'm not able to extract the DNA, the other way around is that we would take the proteins out of these arachnids that we are given at the top, and we will see that what sequence of the amino acid lies in their protein. So this is the other way for the classification. If you're not able to remember these 2 points, so an easy word is anatomy. Like we will try to see their internal structures and we would compare them. So that are the three ways by which the classification is done: by looking on the anatomy, by the sequence of the nitrogenous bases in the DNA, and by looking on toward the sequence of the amino acid and protein, and that would help us in doing the classification. Now, if we were to come on this part, they say that we have the ciliates, and they are classified in the kingdom Protoctists, and you know that the Protoctists they are the dustbin kingdom. If we are coming across organisms that happen to look animal-like and plant-like, but they miss some of the typical characteristics of animal and the plant, so we put them in the kingdom Protoctist. They say the bacteria that we have with us, so they make their own kingdom, which is kingdom Prokaryote, and they ask you to state him two structural features that would distinguish a protoctist from a prokaryote. So wherever the word protoctist, animalia, fungi would come, so you would always say they are the eukaryotes. And by the eukaryotes, what we mean is that they would have the presence of the nuclear membrane and their DNA would be linear. When we talk about the bacteria, so we know that these bacteria, they do not have the nucleus. They don't have the linear DNA, but rather than the circular DNA. And other than that, the Protoctists, they would have membrane-bound organelles. The prokaryotes would not have them. So one point is the nuclear membrane. The other point is the presence of the membrane-bound organelles. Now these two, they are there in the Protoctist, but they are absent in the prokaryote. Now for the B part, where they have given you this figure of 5.1, and they say in 5.1, we show you five species of the ciliates that are found in the sewage treatment works. And by the sewage treatment works, we simply mean as that where the garbage or the polluted water is collected, we will sample them out and we will try to see that how many species of the ciliates we have got here in the sewage treatment work. So here you see they have given you this A ciliate, this is B with us, this is C with us, here we have got the D, and then we have got this E with us, and they have got their genus name written at the bottom. Now, if we were to move here for this figure 5.2, they say we are showing you a dichotomous key. By that, you are required to be identifying the ciliates which are shown in figure 5.1, and they have given you the starting point. And they say is the one point is that there happens to be a ring of cilia at one end of the organism. So if the answer is yes, then okay, fine, there is ring of cilia. So there comes a box, and in the box, we are required to be writing a statement that would go yes for organism B and it would be no for organism E. We just see the discrimination between B and between E that we have got. So you see that one of the statement that I can think can differentiate between Didinium and Vorticella is that Didinium has got two rings of the cilia. But when we talk about Vorticella, so they have got the cilia at the top, or in other words, this has got a stalk, but Didinium is lacking a stalk. So that means that for this box, if I were to discriminate between B and E species, so I would say two rings of cilia. And these two rings of cilia, this goes yes for Didinum and this goes no for Vorticella. If we were to move forward, so here you see they have given a statement here that something has got a star-like structure inside the organism. And if I just move back, so here we have the star-like configuration within this D. So they have written yes for D, isn't it? And then they have given you no option here. And they would want you to be write a statement here in the box 4 that should go yes for organism A and it should be no for organism C that we have got. So if we just try to be discriminating between A and C, so you see that the A has got the presence of the cilia on its entire covering. But when we talk about the C, so it has got no covering of the cilia. So that is why for this box, what statement we are required to be writing is that covering of the cilia. Now again, if for organism A and C, if I were to come across with another point, so I would say no fused cilia. It would go yes for A and it would go no for C. So this is how we were required to be cracking this question up. And now here they have given you just one mark, and they say is that Didinium, which they have shown above as well. So they say is that this is predatory ciliate, and they have come across a video recording, and in that video recording they try to see that how come the Didinium is actually doing, or it would appear when this is feeding on a paramecium. And ultimately in this figure 5.3, which they have given at the bottom, so they show you the sequence of still photograph which they have taken from the video. So they actually captured all of this in a video and they have taken the still photographs and they would like you to be identifying the basic characteristics that you could see here. Now, if you were to see this sedenium here, and this is a paramecium. So this pseudidium is actually feeding onto wood paramecium, or this is eating it up. So this means that it would be nutrition. Now you see that this has started to go like this and like this. Now you see this is elongating or extending its body, and this is how this pseudidium would be showing the movement scenario. So by this you would be scoring 1 mark here. Now, if I were to come on toward this 12th part, and this appeared in year 2021. Variant was 4.1, and the session was October November. They say fish, mammals, and the birds, they are the group of the vertebrates. Now, for 1 mark, they would like you to state the name of two other main groups of the vertebrates. Among the vertebrates, apart from fish, mammals, and birds, we have got reptiles and we have got amphibians. Now, here they have given you a table where we are required to be comparing the feature of the fish, the mammals, and the birds. Now, here you see we have got the feature here. Then here we have got the classes of the vertebrates. The first point which they have given here is that you are required to be writing the name of the organ which is involved for the gaseous exchange. So we know for the fish this is gills. For the mammals, the blank was here, and we know the mammals they have got the lungs that allows them for the gas exchange. And for the birds, again we have got the lungs. Now here comes the feature in terms of the circulatory system. The fish has got a single circulatory system having one atria and one ventricle. And if we talk about the mammals, so they have got double pump circulatory system in them. If we just try to talk about the body covering, so the fish they have got scales on it. So we would be saying scales here, and whenever the birds are concerned, so their body is covered with the feathers. When we intend to be talking about the presence of the external ears or the pinnas, we don't see any external ears neither in the fish nor in the birds, but the answer would be yes for the mammals and it would be no for the birds. So this is how you would score total of 3 marks here. Now, moving onward, they say that there is this baker's yeast. The genus is Saccharomyces and the species is Cerevisiae. And they say this is a single-celled organism that is classified into the kingdom fungi. They say figure 1.1 is a drawing of a section that they have given you for the yeast cell. So if I were to identify the structures, so here comes the cell wall, here we have the cell membrane. The C is not the large permanent vacuole, but rather than for fungi, we refer to this as the sap vacuole. The H structure that we are given here, so they are the ribosomes. The G that they have shown you here, this is the nucleus. The F that they have shown you, so this is rough endoplasmic reticulum. If I talk about E, so this is mitochondria. And if we bother to think about D, so this is actually going to the cytoplasm of the cell. Now, for 1 mark, they are asking us that you are required to state one other kingdom that contains organisms that all have the structure A. So, if we just look on toward the structure A, we know this is there in the plants, and this cell wall is also there with the bacteria or the prokaryotes. So, either you can write plants here or you can write prokaryotes here. Now, moving onward, they have given you the table, and over there they show you some cell functions. And they want us to be completing table 1.1, where we are required to be writing the cell structures. And we have to give our examiner the letter from figure 1.1. And they say is that the storage of genes, and we know the genes, they are stored within the nucleus, and the letter used is G with us. They say aerobic respiration, so we know this is accomplished by the mitochondria. And the letter that you are required to be writing is E with us. And when they say amino acid, they are assembled to make protein. So they are the ribosomes. And the letter which we have to use is H with us. Let us come to B part that we have here. We have a student and he made a drawing of E. coli bacterium. And the drawing of the student, it is presented in 1.2. Like if I could simply see this diagram of the bacteria, I see a cell wall, the cell membrane. Here we have got the circular DNA. Then we have got the presence of these ribosomes. And here lies the cytoplasm. Now, moving further, they ask you is that the actual length of the bacterial cell is 2 micrometer. An examiner wants you that you convert this actual length of the cell to the millimeter. And I have said maybe earlier that whenever there is 1 millimeter, so this is equivalent to 1000 micrometer. So if I want to go from micrometer to millimeter, so this value of the two, I am required it to be divided by 1000, and this would give me an answer of 0.02 millimeter. Further, they say is that we are required to give our examiner some other information that would allow the student to calculate the magnification. And we are aware of this fact that the magnification, this is equivalent to image length divided by the actual length. So since The actual length is given with us. And the other thing that we require to be calculating the magnification, so this would be the length of the image that we are required to be writing it over here. And then for another 6 marks, the examiner wants you to only describe the similarities and the differences that we have got in between the yeast cell and the structure of the bacterial cell. And here the examiner is vigilant that you are required to be using the information from figure 1.1 and 1.2 in your answer. So that is why I have just moved the above figure from here. So if I just simply try to make similarities, both have the cell wall, both have the cell membrane, both of these organisms, they have the ribosomes, both of these, they have got this cytoplasm. And if I were to be discriminating in between them, so we would say that the bacteria has got no membrane-bound organelles like the nucleus and the mitochondria. Now, in the case of this yeast cell, we see rough endoplasmic reticulum that we don't see in the diagram of the bacteria. Other than that, in the yeast that they have given us. So we have got the sap vacuole, which is not there in the bacterial cell. So these are some of the points that we are required to be writing under the heading of the similarities and the differences. I would recommend that it should be in the continuous writing. I have written it in points, but you have to write it in continuous writing. So the similarities among two is the presence of cell wall, the cytoplasm, the ribosomes, and for sure the DNA or the genetic material, because this yeast that we have here, so it would have the genetic material within the nucleus, and here we again have got the presence of the genetic material. Now, if we were to talk about the differences, the yeast has nucleus and the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum and also the membrane-bound organelle. And I told you another point that was the presence of the sap vacuole. These things we don't have in the bacteria. So this is how the differences is coming in between two of these. Now let us come to this. This appeared in year 2021, October, November, and the variant for your theory paper was 4.3. And in figure 3.1, they are presenting you the diagram of a crab, and this is Cerberusa saica, and where this is living in the dark caves, and it has got no colored pigment. And they have presented you the photograph of that. Now they are asking for 1 point that C. saica and D. melanogaster, they are both arthropods. So they would want you to tell him that what feature is common to all arthropod but is absent in the vertebrates. So the arthropods, we know that they have got segmented body, and if I just talk about this crab that we have here, so it has got an exoskeleton. So you can write any point out of it. Now moving onward, what they are saying is that this C. saica is a crustacean and this T. melanogaster, this is an insect. Now the simple idea is that the insects, they have exactly got three pairs of leg. Whenever we talk about the crustaceans, so they have got more than four pair of legs, and the crustaceans also have got an exoskeleton that is made up of the calcium. The insects, they have just one pair of antennas. The crustaceans, they have got two pair of antennas, and they want you to state one morphological feature that would distinguish C. saica as a crustacean and not as an insect. So we would say that why this is a crustacean, because it has got two pair of antennas, or other than that, it has got more than four pair of legs. So you could say five pair of legs. And here, if any of the point you would write it down, you would be awarded 1 mark. Coming on toward this question from the year 2022 May June, and here they have given you the activity that was carried out by some students, that they were doing some work on the yeast and they have made a fact file. The organism they say is yeast, and the scientific name is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. They say this is single-celled organism, and they have given you that the main cell structure which they found within the yeast, they were the cell wall, the cell membrane, the vacuole, the nucleus, mitochondria, rough endoplasmic reticulum, and they say is that the main energy source for this yeast, it was the sugars with us. For 1 mark, they want us to state the kingdom from which the yeast would belong. So you must know this is the fungus, or you can write it as fungi. And among the funguses or the fungi, we have yeast, we have molds, we have mushrooms. So any of the name you could write it down. Like whenever the word mushroom, yeast, or mold is coming, so they would always belong to the fungus kingdom. Moving onward, they want us to state the process that would take place in the mitochondria and it would release energy for the yeast cell. So the answer is very simple that in the mitochondria, aerobic respiration would be accomplished, and by that, the energy would be released for these yeast cells that we have with us. For question number 16, that happened to appear in 2022 October November, and it was variant 4.2. They say is that the phytoplanktons that we have got, they consist of many species, and that has got single celled, and they have got many celled or multicellular algae. They say that the algae are there in the Protoctist kingdom, and further they tell you is that all the algae they would contain one or more chloroplasts. Further, they are saying is that we are required to tell them another kingdom that would have the organisms in them, and that too will have the chloroplast in them. So we know that the chloroplast is found also in the plants kingdom. And other than that, we have got no chloroplast anywhere else except for the algae and that plants that we have with us. Now, moving onward, they say that they have got the student and they investigated the species composition of the phytoplankton in a lake. They have gone to a lake and over there they came across the species of the phytoplanktons and they are trying to be looking on its composition. And here they have given you some of the phytoplanktons that were collected by the students. So we see a lot of the phytoplanktons that the student collected and they are represented as figure 1.1. Now, for 1 mark, there is again an interconversion. They say that the actual length of the algae X is 0.19 millimeter, like this, that we have got X. So they have given you the actual length, and they want you to convert this actual length to micrometer. So since I am moving from the millimeter to the micrometer, so I am required to be multiplying the value of 0.19 with 1000, and here the answer that we would obtain is 190 micrometer, because we know from the mathematical interconversion that 1 millimeter is equivalent to 1000 micrometer. And here comes another dichotomous question. And they say that the student they made careful drawings of 7 types of the algae which are found in the samples of lake water. So these are 7 different type of the algae which they have shown you. Like we have got A, B, we have C, D, then we have got E, then we have got F, and then we have this G with us. Moving onward, we are required to be identifying all the species from A to G, and we need to write the letter for each of the species in the box which they have given at the end. So the protocol is same. They say is that the algae has got 4 spine-like extensions. So if I just move here, 4 spine-like extensions, they are there in the algae F and the algae G and the rest of the algae that we have here, A, B, C, D, and E. So they have got no spike-like structures in them or spine-like structures in them. So that means that for this part where they say algae does not have 4 spine-like extensions, we would be writing other letters apart from G and F. So it would be A, B, C, D, and E. So we have to go to the section 2 in order to do discrimination between G and F. So for the 2, they say that the algae has spine-like extensions that are all the same length, and they say algae has spine-like extensions that are different lengths. So you see the extensions that we have got here, so they are of the different size, and here we have got them of the same size. So for the same, you could say length, we would write the letter G, and for the spine that are of the different lengths, so we would write the letter F here. So we have cracked this G and F. Now, in order to differentiate between A, B, C, D, and E, we are required to go to 3. Now, when I am coming toward 3, they say that algae has a round shape and algae does not have a round shape. So now I need to split these letters into whether they have the round shape or whether they do not have a round shape. Now, if I were to come onto the diagram, so you see that here I have got the B that has round and the rest that we have got as A, we have got C, we have got D, we have got E. So they are not the round shape. So there and then I am required to be writing B out of these five letters that we have here. So this means that the algae that does not have a round shape, so we are required to be writing A, C, D, and E. This is for your convenience actually. Now, for these four letters, I am required to go to 4. And in 4, I have to make a choice between A, C, D, and E. So you see that for the 4, they are saying that the algae narrows toward the ends. And then the second point is that the algae does not narrows toward the end. So if we just see on the diagram, the algae that are narrowing toward the ends, so this is C and this is D with me, and that are not narrowing, so we have got the rest of them, and that would be A and E because we have cracked the rest of them. So you see that those who are narrowing toward the end, this is C and D, and that are not narrowing toward the end, so this would be A and E. For these letters, now we have to go to the point 5. So for the point 5, they say is, like I should mention the letters here for point 5. This is C and D. So I'm writing like C and D, and I have to make the choices. They say that algae is semicircular. So the semicircular algae that we have here, so this is the D with us. So that is why in front of this semicircular, I am writing the letter D. That was this. And when he is saying that the algae cell is not semicircular in shape, so we have got these like two letters. So the other choice with us is C with us. So we are done with doing C and D for this 5. Now the only issue left is with the letter A and E, and for that we are supposed to be going to the sixth point. So this means that among A and E now we have to make a choice that which algae is branched and which is not branched, and the letters are A and the other letter is E with me. So I have to move back and I need to see that A is branched and the other letter with me was E, and this you see is not branched. So for the branching algae, the letter would be A, and for the algae which is not branched, the letter would be E, and now you would score total of 5 marks for this. If we come on toward this question number 17, from May June 2023, and the variant is 4.2. They says that the bacteria are the prokaryotes. We need to state two features of all the prokaryotes. So all the prokaryotes, they have no nucleus. And the other point is that all of the prokaryotes, they have got the circular DNA. If you forget about these 2 points, all the bacteria, they would have the ribosomes, the cytoplasm, the cell wall, or the cell membrane. So any two features you have to remember from here. They say some bacteria have the flagellum, and we are required to tell our examiner the function of the flagellum. So this is movement, or either you could say swimming. And now let us come to this 18 part. And this came in the year 2020, and this was October, November 4.2. And here they say that the yeast cells have many structures which are common with the plant cells. So if we just try to highlight what we have got in the diagram of the yeast cell, so you follow the highlighter. Here they have labeled the cell wall. The A that we are given here, so this is the ribosomes or the rough endoplasmic reticulum. The B is the nucleus. The C is the mitochondria with me. And the D that we have here, this is not the large permanent vacuole, but we would call this as the sap vacuole. They say state the names of the cell structures labeled A and D, and I have already done it. A is the ribosomes or the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the D that we have got is you would call this as the vacuole or the sap vacuole. For 2 marks for the second part is that state the function of the cell structures labeled B and C. As you see, the B is the nucleus, and the function is that it controls the making of protein, or you could say is that it contains the genetic information. And if I talk about C, so since the C is the mitochondria, and we know this carries out the aerobic respiration. And they ask is that state the name of one structure that is found in the plant cell but is absent in the yeast cell. So we know it is a chloroplast. And chloroplast is something that allows the plant cells to photosynthesize. Yeast cells are strictly heterotrophic, they would never have this chloroplast in them. Moving onward to this last question, and here they have given you figure 1.1 and they are showing you the photograph of the fish. The other photograph which is given below, which is 1.2, so this is showing you the amphibian. And if I were to clearly see, the fish has got the scales onto it and this has got the fins in it as well. Now, if I were to talk about the amphibian which they have shown you here, so it has got no scales on it, but rather than its skin is slimy. It has got the limbs that I don't see in the fish. Now, what they ask for 2 marks is that you are required to tell two visible features that would distinguish the fish from the amphibian. So, as I have already told, that the fish has got the scaly skin, the fish has got fins, or you could say that the fish do not have any of the limbs in it. Moving to the part B, they say fish, amphibians, and the mammals, they are all the vertebrate groups because they have got the backbone in them, and they want us to tell him the name of one other vertebrate group. So the among the other vertebrate groups, we know that could be a reptile. If you forget about it, you could say it could be a bird. Now, coming on to question number 22, this appeared in the year 2024, October, November, and the variant was 4.1. They say organisms from the genus Chlorella, they are Protoctists. They say state the additional information which is required to name Chlorella according to binomial system. As per the binomial system that was suggested by Linnaeus, so the scientific name or the binomial name, it has got two features. One should be the genus, the other should be the species name. The genus name is given, so we require an additional information in terms of having the species name with us. Now, if we just look on toward the structure of this genus Chlorella, so here we see the cytoplasm here, then we have got the cell wall, here comes the cell membrane, and they show you the structure of the chloroplast here. And at this point, we have got the nucleus. They say identify two cell structures which are there in figure 1.1 that indicates that chlorella is not a prokaryote. And we know prokaryote is bacteria, they would never ever have a chloroplast in them. And the bacteria would never have the nucleus in them. So the answer would be the presence of the nucleus and the chloroplast. Now, here the examiner wants us to identify two cell structures that we see in figure 1.1. And they say is that that structure would be there both in the fungus and protoctist. See, the word is protoctist, not prokaryote. So the protoctists are eukaryotes. So they would have the nucleus. Fungus again would have the nucleus. This again is eukaryote. Both of them, they would have the cytoplasm, and both of them, they would also have the cell membrane in them. So out of these points, you have to quote him any two. I have written cell wall and cell membrane. If you forget any one point out of here, so you can write the nucleus as both of them, they are the eukaryotes. Now, and if I just talk about the last part, here they say is state the name of two other kingdoms apart from fungus, prokaryote, and protoctist. So we know the other two kingdoms are animals and the plants with us. And here you would score 1 mark. I hope you would be clear with all the dimensions of the past paper questions that would come specifically from this chapter. And this would make sense to all of you now. So see you in the next class for the chapter number 2, Topicals.